Lewis Hamilton has renewed his contract with Mercedes until 2024, but some of his recent actions show that the seven-time world champion might not be as dedicated to the Silver Arrows as the fans would have expected. Christian Horner has made a shocking claim on Hamilton's talks during the period of rumour swirls going around, and it seems like he's been much closer to replace Perez than we could originally imagine. Why did this deal fall through? And more importantly, does it actually mean Hamilton and Verstappen would get in the same team at a certain point in their F1 careers? It goes without saying that we are currently in a Red Bull-dominated era, and to top that off, we have Max Verstappen's dominance that is absolutely soul-crushing for his rivals. Winning 18 out of the 21 venues that the sport has visited in 2023 is the most dominant showing that an F1 driver could possibly showcase to the world. Therefore, beating him would only be possible by being his teammate, which is also kind of a mission impossible scenario due to the fact that the Dutchman has extensive knowledge of the car, and we all saw what goes on when the second driver shows teeth to the three-time world champion. But will this be the case with Hamilton though? Although he was adamant that his loyalty always laid around with Mercedes, there have been talks of him to join forces with some of his team's fiercest rivals, such as Ferrari and Red Bull. Before we go to the latest bombshell of Christian Horner, let's explain why it's quite believable by stating what John Elkann, the chairman of Ferrari, said earlier this season regarding Hamilton's future in Ferrari. Lewis also had talks to join forces with the Maranello team, but one of the reasons why he gave up is because of the consistency of the team as well as their working environment. The Brit felt like there was too much to be fixed there, and according to Horner, this is when he decided to ask Red Bull as to whether or not there is a possibility for him to join forces with Verstappen. Elaborating on their talk furthermore, one of the F1's most renowned media, Also Motor and Sport, went on to say, Lewis Hamilton was personally contacted by John Elkann. It seems he politely replied with a "no thank you," and one can understand why, unfortunately. While this is vastly different from what Horner stated, it goes to show that other teams approaching Hamilton have smelled blood in the sea, and with how the season has continued to unfold down in Brazil, in Vegas, the wounds of Mercedes have only continued to bleed, making it more likely that Hamilton would give up the project sooner rather than later. Before you start attacking me and label me as an inexperienced Formula One hothead, just wait until you hear what Horner stated about the seven-time world champion. The statement of the Red Bull's team principal comes at a very interesting time, just when Wolff said that the Abu Dhabi GP has a legitimate and real race director now, unlike in 2021. So it could be the fact that the Brit wants to throw shade over his rivals yet again through the social media channels. That has been done all over again in this year because, quite frankly, this is the only place where we can see battles between these two teams happening. But be that as it may, it's still a strong statement and it should not be overlooked in the close future. Elaborating on how Hamilton approached Red Bull for a seat, Horner went on to say, "We have had several conversations over the years about Lewis joining. They have reached out a few times. Most recently, earlier in the year, there was an inquiry about whether there would be any interest, but I can't see Max and Lewis working out together. The dynamic wouldn't be right. We are 100% happy with what we have." Lewis met John Elkann too. I think there were serious talks. It was around Monaco in May. There were definitely conversations, perhaps with Vasseur too, but certainly with Elkann. Is this something that should worry Mercedes fans? Probably not, because Hamilton has already pledged his loyalty to the Silver Arrows, and it does seem like this is the only team with which he's going to win the 8th record-breaking championship. The question is, will the team be actually able to provide him with the equipment in order for him to do so? There are always rises and falls of dynasties, and the latest one is currently being witnessed in Mercedes, even though the team is second in the Constructors' Championship and is holding a tight lead over Ferrari heading into the last race of the season. Regardless, the difference to Red Bull is so large that it would probably take well beyond 2026 in order for their rivals to catch up, even though Horner is adamant that the development of McLaren and Aston Martin show that Red Bull is vulnerable and they can bleed much more than the general F1 media believes. And at this point, the most realistic scenario for Hamilton to win a championship is to have a proper one-on-one battle with Verstappen in the same car, something that the fans would definitely want, as it would go on to show who is actually the better driver in the same outlet. Even Hamilton himself claimed that had he been Verstappen's teammate, the championship wouldn't have been so easy, as the lead of Verstappen to Perez is 276 points, more than Perez has in general, 273. Speaking about Verstappen's dominance, Hamilton went on to say, "I'm no more impressed than when Michael Schumacher was leading, when Vettel was leading, when Raikkonen was driving, when Alonso was winning. It's just the same. I think the Red Bull team as a whole is one of the strongest. They are firing on all cylinders right now. The car is incredible. The drivers are doing an amazing job, very consistent. The pit crew is doing a great job. The mechanics are doing a good job. Strategy is doing a good job. On point, you can't fault them. In my personal opinion, all my teammates have been stronger than the teammates Max has had. Jensen, Fernando, George, Valtteri, Nico, I've had so many. These guys have all been very, very strong, very consistent, and Max has not raced against anyone like that." But let's be realistic and talk about what is waiting for us further ahead, and that is the 2024 season. Nico Rosberg has already made a strong claim that his former teammate and one of his biggest nemesis from 2016 will fight for the championship in 2024. But will Mercedes actually be able to build a car that can be close to the RB19? They do seem to be far behind in development, and the fact that McLaren and Aston Martin have made huge steps ahead with some of the upgrades goes to show that the aerodynamic aspect of Mercedes' team does need a bit of changing ahead of the new season. According to Andrew Chauvelin, the trackside engineer of the team and one of the few people left in Mercedes from their dream team, the goals for 2024 are very optimistic, and the issues that caused such a poor performance in Brazil have already been resolved. But with the current pace, Mercedes can only achieve so much, and that could further aggravate Hamilton in wanting to make a move in another team, which would definitely ruin his reputation, but may be the only solution for his ultimate goal: win the 8th record-breaking championship. Approaching drivers from team principals and vice versa is not that uncommon in Formula One. That's been done with Lando Norris as well, and the latest statement from Horner does seem to be made out of pitifulness in order to throw additional shade at his former rivals ahead of the last race of the season. However, should Hamilton choose to move to Red Bull and get paired with Verstappen somewhere down the line, as he already committed to race in his 40s, it would be one of the biggest bombshells that the sport has seen, and it would cause permanent changes on how the teams and their drivers are viewed from a fan perspective. Regardless of that, Horner was adamant that 2 Alpha drivers in one team would not work, so the only question that remains to be answered at this point is whether or not Hamilton is personally happy in Mercedes. He did vow to visit Brackley on a regular basis, and him approaching Red Bull for a potential contract talk, if we are to trust Horner's words, is definitely something that changes the entire narrative of his future with Mercedes. With this in mind, do you think that this is a move to which Hamilton might navigate towards the closing stages of his career? And more importantly, will Red Bull actually be willing to pull their star driver in an openly vulnerable position just to prove to the world that he might be the better driver compared to Hamilton in the same machinery? Let us know in the comments below.